The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been called with unprecedented urgency. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations huddled around the massive quantum projection table, their forms ranging from vaguely humanoid to utterly incomprehensible collections of light and gas. At the center stood Admiral Vix Nalori, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the dim ambient lighting as she gestured toward the holographic display. 3 days ago, our deep space reconnaissance vessel Infinite Curiosity disappeared while investigating an anomalous signal from Sector 33117, she announced, her translator converting her harmonic vibrations into intelligible speech. We've lost 17 ships in that region in the past cycle alone. Counselor Krell, a gelatinous mass of neural fibers suspended in a hovering containment field, pulsed with agitation. That's the Sol Systems quadrant. We've had a restriction zone around that area for centuries. Indeed, Vix Nalori continued, but what concerns us is that the restriction perimeter has expanded by 12 parsecs without authorization. The hologram zoomed in on a small blue-green world third from an unremarkable yellow star. Earth. The projection highlighted a steadily expanding sphere of what appeared to be communication signals, probes, and rudimentary spacecraft extending outward from the planet. Their technological advancement rate has exceeded all projections, offered Science Director Mezix, his scaled appendages manipulating the controls to show a timeline. What should have taken millennia has occurred in less than 3 of their centuries. An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Most species represented had heard the rumors about Earth, but few believed them. The stories seemed too fantastical. Tales of a species that had evolved not through careful ecological balance but through relentless competition and survival against impossible odds. I believe it's time we shared the classified records, said Elder Ulopax, the oldest member of the council. Her voice, transmitted from a body that had long ago transcended physical form, carried the weight of authority that came with 15,000 years of existence. The prohibition on Earth contact isn't merely precautionary, it is absolute necessity. The hologram shifted to display footage that caused several counselors to emit involuntary distress signals. The recording, taken from an ill-fated first contact mission 700 years earlier, showed bipedal creatures, humans, fighting back against technologically superior forces with improvised weapons and inexplicable tenacity. This was Expedition Vanguard, explained Vix Nalori. They arrived during what humans called their medieval period, expecting to find a pre-industrial species ready for shepherding into the galactic community. The footage showed a human settlement ablaze, yet the inhabitants, rather than fleeing, organized a counterattack using primitive projectile weapons, flammable liquids, and what appeared to be suicidal battle tactics. They lost everything, continued the Admiral, yet they fought harder. Our researchers couldn't comprehend it. The expedition commander reported that the humans exhibited no fear response proportional to the threat. Instead, they displayed something our psychologists had never documented. They became more coordinated, more innovative, and more lethal as their situation deteriorated. Elder Ulopax's energy form flickered solemnly. The quarantine was established after we recovered the expeditions. Black box. Only 17 of the 200 crew members survived, and that was when humans had nothing but sharpened metal and combustible chemicals. Counselor Krell rippled anxiously. And now they have nuclear weapons, primitive space travel capabilities, and quantum communication technology. Worse, said Mezix, advancing the hologram to show more recent surveillance. They have achieved what no other species has managed. They've weaponized their own adaptability. Every conflict they engage in leaves them stronger, more resilient and more technologically advanced than before. The council chamber fell into uneasy silence as the implications became clear. Earth wasn't restricted to protect humans from outside interference. It was restricted to protect the galaxy from humanity. Fleet Commander Tazvrek stared at the tactical display, trying to make sense of the impossible readings. The 7 warships of the hegemony's elite Crimson Squadron, each the size of a small moon and equipped with planet-cracking weaponry, were being systematically dismantled by what appeared to be crude vessels constructed of repurposed mining equipment. How? He demanded. slamming his armored appendage against the command console. "How are they anticipating our phase shift maneuvers? Our cloaking technology is impenetrable." Strategic analyst Liran scrolled through incoming data streams, her luminescent skin pulsing with stress indicators. "The humans are using no technology we can identify. They're just watching our attack patterns and adapting. They're learning during combat." The command bridge shuddered as another impact rocked the flagship. Tazvrex had led the hegemony's forces to countless victories across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. His species, the Valduran, had evolved from apex predators and prided themselves on their military superiority. Yet here, barely at the edge of the Sol system, his fleet was being decimated by creatures who had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years earlier. "Impossible," he growled. "No species can process tactical information that quickly." Through the viewport, he watched in disbelief as a human vessel, little more than a retrofitted asteroid miner, executed a maneuver that violated several laws of physics as the hegemony understood them. The tiny ship somehow predicted exactly where the Valduran cruiser would rematerialize after its quantum jump, positioning itself to deliver a devastating strike to the larger vessel's propulsion system. "Commander," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through," Tazvrex ordered, bracing himself. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a human female. Her face lacked the protective plating or intimidating features that signified authority among most spacefaring species. Instead, she appeared soft, fragile even, yet her eyes held something that sent an instinctive chill through the commander's exoskeleton. "This is Captain Alara Keene of the United Earth Defense Force," she said calmly, as though she weren't in the middle of dismantling a superior fleet. "Your vessels have violated sovereign human territory. Stand down immediately." Tazvrex bristled. "This system was claimed by the hegemony long before your species crawled out of its evolutionary muck. You will surrender or be eradicated." The human showed no fear at the threat. Instead, she smiled, a gesture that, in humans, could signal either friendship or imminent violence. "We reviewed the standard Galactic Council territorial claim protocols. Interesting reading. Particularly the clause about established claims being nullified if the claiming party cannot maintain effective control of the region." On the tactical display, 3 more hegemony vessels flashed red as their systems went critical. "You have 2 minutes to recall your remaining ships and depart," continued Captain Keene, "or will be forced to demonstrate what effective control looks like from the human perspective." When the transmission ended, Liran approached her commander, lowering her voice. "Sir, we've intercepted communications between their vessels. They're using combat strategies developed in something called video games, simulated conflict scenarios they create for entertainment. Their pilots have been training in virtual environments that mimic space combat since childhood." Tazvrex stared at her. "They simulate warfare? For amusement?" "Yes, sir. And there's more. The materials analysis of their ships shows they're using technology reverse-engineered from the wreckage of previous alien encounters. They're not just learning our tactics, they're absorbing our technology and improving upon it." The commander looked back at the viewport, watching another hegemony cruiser split apart under human weapons fire. He had led invasions against dozens of species, and all had followed predictable patterns when facing superior force: negotiation, capitulation, or desperate last stands. None had ever responded like this, with innovative countermeasures that seemed to emerge spontaneously in the heat of battle. "Signal the retreat," he ordered finally, "and prepare a quantum transmission to the Hegemony Council. They need to know." "Sir?" prompted Liran when he fell silent. Tazvrex's 4 eyes fixed on the distant blue planet now just visible as a speck in the void. "They need to know we've encountered a species that doesn't fight to survive. They fight to win. No matter the odds, and somehow they've made a game of it." Research Director Clovari adjusted her environment suit settings as she descended deeper into the ancient repository. The archival world of Nemosin had been collecting data on all known civilizations for over 20,000 years. Its vast, Underground complexes stretching for thousands of kilometers beneath the planet's crystalline surface. "This way, Director," called her assistant Pren, his bioluminescent antennae providing soft light in the dimness. The Earth records are kept in the quarantine section. They pass through a series of increasingly sophisticated security measures: genetic, scanners, quantum entanglement locks, and psychic barriers designed to deter even the most determined intruders. Few even among the highest echelons of galactic society knew of this place's existence. "Here we are," said Pren finally, gesturing toward an isolated data core pulsing with ominous red light. "All known information on species designation H1, origin planet Earth, Sol system." Clovari approached the terminal with scientific reverence. "Access historical analysis, first contact chronology." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a timeline that stretched back nearly 2,000 years. What she saw made her exoskeleton plates flare with shock. "This can't be correct," she whispered. "According to this, we've had 17 first contact events with humans." Pren's antennae quivered nervously. "Technically, Director, they were 17 separate attempts at first contact. None were officially sanctioned after the initial quarantine was established." The display showed a pattern as fascinating as it was disturbing. Each contact event had followed a similar trajectory: initial peaceful approach, followed by misunderstanding or perceived threat, culminating in a disproportionate human response that invariably ended in disaster for the contacting species. "What's this notation?" Clovari asked, pointing to a recurring symbol in the data. "That indicates technology transfer," Pren explained. "After each encounter, human technological development experienced an exponential acceleration in specific areas related to the contacting species' capabilities." Clovari's analytical mind raced with implications. They're not just defending themselves, they're harvesting information, learning from each encounter. She scrolled through case studies, increasingly disturbed by what she found. The Zerillian exploration team, whose biotech was now curiously reflected in human medical advancements. The Vexari trade expedition, whose energy manipulation techniques had somehow been replicated in Earth's newest power generation systems. "This defies evolutionary logic," she muttered. "Most species specialize, developing strengths in particular domains while accepting limitations in others. But humans," she gestured at the display, which now showed a comparative analysis of human advancement versus other known intelligence-bearing species. The graph was unlike anything she'd seen. Instead of the standard sigmoid curve of technological development, human progress resembled a series of explosive bursts, each corresponding with an extraterrestrial encounter or internal conflict. "They don't just adapt," she realized aloud. "They transform crisis into opportunity. They weaponize adversity itself." Pren pulled up another file, a psychological assessment compiled by the Galactic Council's Xenoanthropology Division. According to this analysis, humans possess a unique cognitive framework. Where most sentient species evolve to avoid danger and seek stability, humans developed what researchers call adversity addiction. They actually seek out challenges and conflicts as a mechanism for growth. The terminal displayed footage of human history: wars, disasters, explorations into hostile environments, all undertaken with a fervor that bordered on zealotry. "Look at this," Clovari said, focusing on one particular data point: the Tressarian incident. Their mining colony established peaceful trade with a human outpost on Mars. All interactions were positive. Then a solar flare damaged the Tressarian life support systems. "Standard procedure would be to evacuate," noted Pren. "Yes, but instead the humans..." She trailed off, reading the report in disbelief. "The humans exposed themselves to harmful radiation to rescue the Tressarians, then reverse-engineered their environmental systems to create improved radiation shielding." Clovari closed the file, her scientific detachment wavering. "They're dangerous, not because they're hostile, but because they're unpredictable. They don't just survive through adversity, they thrive on it." As they prepared to leave the archives, a final notation caught her attention: a predictive model showing human expansion over the next century. If the pattern held, humanity would not remain contained to their solar system much longer, and the galaxy had no protocol for dealing with a species that grew stronger with each attempt to control it. Surveillance specialist Dresmore had maintained his cloaked observation post on Earth's moon for 37 continuous cycles. His mission was simple: monitor, but never interfere; document, but never engage. The clandestine Anthropological Research Division had selected him for his patience and objectivity, qualities now being tested to their limits. "Central, this is Lunar Outpost," he transmitted through the secure quantum channel. "Requesting clarification on Protocol 7 Alpha." The response came after a standard delay. "Clarify request, Observer Dresmore." He gestured toward his monitoring equipment, which was currently focused on a human military installation in a region they called Nevada. The humans are testing technology that bears striking similarities to Craxian phase shift propulsion. Technology they should have no knowledge of. A longer pause followed. "Elaborate. They're adapting principles from a crashed Craxian scout ship, the one lost in their Arizona region 53 local years ago. But they're not just replicating it, they're improving it. Their prototype exceeds Craxian efficiency standards by 27%. Through his high-powered observation equipment, Dresmore watched human engineers working with materials and concepts that should be centuries beyond their understanding. Yet somehow they moved with confidence, making intuitive leaps that would impress even the most advanced scientific minds in the galaxy. "Continue observation," came the terse reply. "Non-interference protocols remain in effect." Dresmore acknowledged, but felt a growing unease. In his decades watching humans, he'd documented countless examples of their most peculiar trait: their ability to make cognitive connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. Where other species learned linearly, humans thought in webs of association, drawing parallels between disparate fields of knowledge to create something entirely new. It was as though their minds were specifically evolved to repurpose information in ways no other known species could conceive. His observation log was filled with examples. Human military strategists applying concepts from board games to warfare. Medical researchers using principles from plumbing to revolutionize cardiovascular treatments. Engineers adapting ideas from natural structures, what they called biomimicry, to solve complex architectural problems. And now they were doing it again with alien technology. Dresmore switched his surveillance to a different location, a university research lab where young humans were experimenting with quantum entanglement. Their equipment was crude by galactic standards, yet they were achieving results that rivaled the work of species who had been studying quantum mechanics for millennia. "Central, additional observation," he transmitted. "Human educational methodology appears to be a significant factor in their advancement rate." "Explain," came the response. "They deliberately expose their young to problems without solutions. They call it creative thinking development. Instead of providing answers, they reward novel approaches. Their educational competitions actually prioritize unconventional thinking over correct outcomes." As he spoke, he watched a human instructor, praising a student who had failed to solve a physics problem, but had developed an innovative new approach in the attempt. By the standards of most galactic civilizations, this was counterproductive. Efficiency was paramount, and deviations from established methodologies were discouraged. Yet humans deliberately cultivated this intellectual chaos. They thrived on it. Dresmore's species had evolved as hive-mind collaborators, valuing harmony and consensus. Most advanced civilizations followed similar patterns. Technological progress emerged from gradual, collective refinement of established principles. But humans seem to advance most rapidly through disruption and dissent. "Central," he transmitted after several hours of additional observation, requesting permission to include subjective assessment in next report. A longer pause followed. Subjective reporting was discouraged in his division. "Granted," came the eventual reply. "It is my belief that the quarantine protocol requires revision," Dresmore stated carefully. "Current non-interference policy assumes humans will develop along predictable technological paths. Evidence suggests otherwise. They are not merely advancing, they are advancing in ways we cannot anticipate. He looked again at the Nevada facility, where humans were now testing a prototype vehicle that defied conventional understanding of how they should be progressing. The danger is not just what they are becoming, he continued, but that we cannot predict what they will become. Ambassador Ilixanara adjusted her universal translator one final time as the elevator descended toward Earth's unified diplomatic center in Geneva. After centuries of quarantine and observation, the Galactic Council had finally approved limited official contact with humanity, a decision as controversial as it was necessary. Remember the protocols, her aide Melix whispered. No technology exchange. No discussion of galactic politics. No mention of the 17 previous unauthorized contacts. Ilixnara nodded tersely. As a member of the highly empathic Elysian species, she had been chosen specifically for her ability to navigate complex emotional landscapes, yet even she felt apprehensive about this unprecedented meeting. The humans will have prepared extensively, she said. They've suspected our existence for generations. They will have questions. Questions we're not authorized to answer, Melix reminded her. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a chamber designed specifically for this historic encounter. Human architects had created a space that blended various terrestrial styles, a gesture of inclusion that wasn't lost on Ilixnara. More telling were the subtle defensive measures carefully integrated into the aesthetic. Energy-dampening fields, disguised as decorative elements, quantum disruption technology hidden within artistic installations. They were prepared for treachery. Wise 5 human representatives waited at the circular table. Ilixnara noted their diversity, different phenotypes, genders, and cultural signifiers, a calculated choice to display human variety while presenting a unified front. "Welcome to Earth," said the central figure, a woman with dark skin and commanding presence. "I am Director Nyota Kalu of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. We've been expecting you for some time." The slight emphasis on those last words carried an unmistakable message. "We know you've been watching us." Ilixnara inclined her head in the universal gesture of respectful acknowledgement. "I am Ambassador Ilixnara of the Galactic Council. We come in peace and with genuine desire for constructive dialogue." Director Kalu smiled, a human expression that could signal anything from warmth to predatory intent. "An interesting statement, Ambassador, considering the quarantine your council has maintained around our system for centuries." The directness was startling, but not entirely unexpected. Humans were known for their conversational efficiency when it suited them. "A protection measure," Ilixnara replied carefully, "implemented for mutual benefit during your species' developmental phase." A man with silver-streaked hair leaned forward. "Protection from what exactly? Other galactic powers, who might interfere with our development, or protection for the rest of the galaxy from us?" The question hung in the air, deceptively simple yet impossible to answer truthfully without violating her diplomatic constraints. Ilixnara's empathic senses detected the calculated challenge beneath the inquiry. They were testing her honesty. "Your galaxy is complex," she said finally. "Newly spacefaring species face many challenges. The Council's policy is non-interference until certain developmental milestones are reached. Milestones we've apparently achieved," noted another human representative, his tone skeptical. "Coincidentally, just as we've developed independent faster-than-light capabilities that would allow us to bypass your quarantine regardless of your permission." Ilixnara felt a sensation unusual in diplomatic exchanges. Genuine surprise. The humans knew more than they should about Council protocols. More disturbing was their apparent knowledge of the Council's true motivation for this meeting. "We propose an exchange," said Director Kalu, moving the conversation forward. "Not of technology, but of knowledge, cultural understanding, a first step toward eventual human participation in galactic affairs." "That aligns with our mission," Ilixnara agreed, cautiously. "Excellent," Kalu smiled again. "Then perhaps you can explain why 6 different alien species have attempted covert operations on Earth in the past decade alone, despite your quarantine." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. This was not in any of the prepared scenarios. The humans had somehow documented incursions that even the Council was unaware of. Or perhaps, continued Kalu, you could clarify why wreckage from the hegemony fleet destroyed near Proxima Centauri contains technology far beyond what your previous cultural exchange briefings claimed was the galactic standard. Malix stiffened. Beside her, a subtle tell that confirmed the humans' suspicions. They had been deliberately misled about galactic technological levels. Elixnara made a split-second decision that would likely end her diplomatic career, but might salvage this critical first contact. Director Kalu, she said, abandoning her prepared statements. Humanity's relationship with the galactic community is complicated. Some fear your species' advancement rate. Others see opportunity. The Council itself is divided on how to proceed. The humans exchange glances, not of surprise but of confirmation. We suspected as much, said Kalu, which is why we're prepared to offer a compromise. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system, with highlighted zones extending outward through nearby star systems. A buffer zone, she explained. We maintain sovereignty over our solar system and immediate neighboring regions. We neither seek membership in your council nor reject peaceful interaction with non-hostile species. A neutral territory where controlled cultural and scientific exchange can occur under mutual oversight. It was a masterful proposal, one that acknowledged galactic concerns while asserting human independence. Most notably, it offered a face-saving solution for the Council without requiring humans to submit to external authority. Such an arrangement would be unprecedented, Elixnara said carefully. So are we, apparently, replied Kalu with that same inscrutable smile. Your quarantine has already told us that much. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council had been in progress for 26 hours. Representatives from the 12 most powerful civilizations in known space sat in a state of collective shock as Admiral Vix Nalori presented her final analysis. The data is conclusive, she stated, her crystalline form resonating with grave harmonics. The dimensional breach in the Sagittarius arm is expanding. The entity's incursion cannot be contained through conventional means. Elder Ulopax's energy form pulsed with ancient concern. We've encountered extra-dimensional threats before. The protoculture developed effective countermeasures during the Third Epoch. This is different, said Science Director Mezix, displaying complex multi-dimensional calculations. The entity exists partially outside our physical laws. It's consuming matter, energy, and information simultaneously. The protoculture barriers are ineffective. The implications were clear and devastating. In 3 months, the breach would reach the first heavily populated systems. In 6, it would threaten the core worlds. Within a year, the galaxy as they knew it would cease to exist. What of the Ascended Ones? Asked Councillor Krell, referring to the mysterious post-physical intelligences that had occasionally intervened in galactic affairs. Unresponsive, Mezix replied. Our best theory is that they've withdrawn to another reality plane to escape what's coming. Silence fell across the chamber as the assembled leaders confronted what seemed increasingly inevitable. Extinction. There is one option we haven't discussed, said Ambassador Elixnara quietly. All eyes turned to her, many with expressions of disbelief. You can't be suggesting, began Tazvrex. Earth, she confirmed. Humanity. The mere suggestion sent ripples of alarm through the Council. Research Director Cloveri's exoskeleton plates flared with agitation. They're barely a Class 3 civilization. They haven't even colonized their own star system effectively. Yet they defeated your hegemony fleet with mining equipment, Elixnara reminded Tazvrex, who rumbled with reluctant acknowledgement. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Elder Ulopax. That we break quarantine completely. Share everything, our technology, our knowledge, our predicament, and ask for their help. The suggestion was so radical that several council members began speaking at once, their universal translators struggling to convert the overlapping objections. Silence, commanded Elder Ulopax, her energy form flaring. When order returned, she continued, Ambassador, you're suggesting we arm potentially the most dangerous species we've encountered with our most advanced technology. The risk is necessary, Elixnara finished. Our understanding of humanity is incomplete, but one thing is clear. They excel at solving seemingly impossible problems. They think differently than we do. Admiral Vixnalori manipulated the holographic display to show Earth. The ambassador has a point. Look at their history. They've faced extinction-level threats multiple times and survived through adaptation and innovation. They've never faced anything like the entity, objected Clovari. Neither have we, countered Vixnalori, and our standard approaches have failed. Perhaps we need a non-standard species. Surveillance specialist Dresmore, normally not permitted to speak in council proceedings, cleared his throat. If I may, elders, in my decades observing humans, I've documented a curious phenomenon. They possess an almost pathological creativity when facing extinction scenarios. Explain, ordered Elder Ulopax. Where most species respond to existential threats with either fight, flight, or freeze responses, humans have developed a fourth option. They innovate. Their entertainment is filled with apocalyptic scenarios that they solve through improbable means. They don't just prepare for disaster. They rehearse it constantly in their imaginations. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of this observation sank in. Director Nyota Kalu's face appeared on the central communication display. We've been monitoring your emergency broadcasts, she said without preamble. Our quantum decryption capabilities are another thing we kept from your ambassador. The council members exchanged alarmed glances. The humans had been listening to their most secure communications. We know about the entity, Kalu continued, and we have a proposal. The audacity was breathtaking. Humans inserting themselves into a council session, demonstrating technological capabilities they shouldn't possess and offering solutions to a crisis they should have no knowledge of. Director Kalu, Elder Ulopax responded after a moment. This is highly irregular. So is an interdimensional entity consuming the galaxy, Kalu replied evenly. Irregular circumstances require irregular responses. We've been analyzing the dimensional breach since it first appeared 3 weeks ago. Impossible, muttered Clovari. The breach is beyond your detection capability. We repurposed the technology from that Zerillian ship that accidentally crashed in our ocean last year, Kalu explained with a hint of irony. We've been running simulations based on the data, and we have a theoretical solution. The human activated her own holographic display, showing complex equations and engineering schematics that made even the most advanced council scientists lean forward in surprise. You're proposing to collapse the breach by inverting its dimensional signature, said Mezix, studying the human calculations with growing astonishment. That shouldn't be possible with current technology. Not with yours, agreed Kalu. But we've been experimenting with principles you haven't explored, combining quantum tunneling techniques with gravitational manipulation in ways your scientific traditions considered too unstable to pursue. Because they are too unstable, objected Clovari. The energy requirements alone would be met by our prototype stellar harvesting array, Kalu finished. We've been developing it in secret for decades. The council chamber erupted in chaos again. Humans with stellar manipulation technology represented exactly the nightmare scenario the quarantine had been designed to prevent. When order was restored, Elder Ulopax addressed the human director directly. What are you asking in return for? This assistance, Director Kalu? The human's expression remained calm, but her eyes held the intensity that had so unsettled Ambassador Elixnara during their first meeting. The full truth, she said simply, about why Earth has been quarantined, about the 17 previous contact attempts, about the real history of human interaction with galactic civilization. She paused, letting the magnitude of her knowledge sink in. And then, she continued, a seat at the table, not as subordinates or students but as equals. Earth remains sovereign, but humanity joins the galactic community with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Admiral Vixnalori looked to Elder Ulopax, her crystalline form vibrating with tension. We have 12 days before the entity reaches the Pylos system. After that, containment becomes exponentially more difficult. The ancient elder's energy form fluctuated as she considered options rapidly diminishing. Finally, she spoke. Director Kalu, the Galactic Council accepts your terms. A full disclosure packet is being transmitted to your quantum receivers now. We request immediate implementation of your countermeasure proposal. Kalu nodded solemnly. Our fleet is already assembling at the breach coordinates. We'll begin operations within 24 hours. As the transmission ended, the council members sat in stunned silence contemplating the irony of their situation. For centuries, they had maintained the Earth quarantine to protect the galaxy from humanity's unpredictable nature. Now, that same unpredictability might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. And the real reason Earth had been off limits to aliens, the humans' dangerous propensity for turning any challenge into an opportunity for advancement, had become their greatest asset. It seems, said Elder Ulo Pax with something approaching humor in her ancient voice, that evolution has a sense of irony after all. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity had known since its earliest days among the stars. Sometimes, the most dangerous species are the ones you need most when facing extinction.